Hello, and welcome back to Successful Minds. I'm your host, Patty Baranowski-Schneider. Today I'm joined by Michael Forman, an engaging communicator and leading expert at making networking fun and profitable. So welcome, Michael. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Going back almost to the beginning, I'm a military person. I was in the United States Air Force, and I learned networking really then. But in my corporate life, I was in manager for a mortgage company, a mortgage bank. I was a director in a law firm. So my experience goes well beyond what I talk about, but it gives me a lot of insight to what people are thinking.
Good. Sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes that's a bad
Yeah.
thing. Now, tell us what inspired you to become an expert in networking and write your book, Networking Unleashed?
Well, it's funny because ever since the pandemic, I've been talking about networking for about 30 years. I've been speaking for about 10 years, and really only over the past year to decide to make it my full-time business. Um, but after the pandemic, people forgot how to network. They forgot how to communicate with one another. And I'll tell you, it's a funny story. I was sitting with my wife in a diner, and we saw a man and his son on the phone texting. I was like, excuse me, but what are you doing? And he goes, you mean the son right across the table from you? He goes, yeah, this is the only way he'll listen to me.
I see that all
So,
the time.
judging by that, people forgot just the simple, eye contact and handshake and just the simple things that you and I would think, well, that's a no brainer, of course. The 20 somethings, the 30 somethings, they either don't know how, or the 30 somethings and 40 somethings, they forgot how to do everything. So I'm here to help guide you along the way to help you to increase your networking, which, of course, in turn will increase your profitability.
Nice. I know it's funny. It's one of my biggest pet peeves because no matter where you go, even at a dinner table, everybody's this. And I've heard of families will say when you come in, your phone gets put on in that basket. There's no phone here, but it's just a nonstop thing. And or people, you could be in a car and they're on the phone with someone else. It's like, okay, I
Well,
mean,
when I had, yeah, well, when my children were growing up, and this is when phones were just coming out, I had a rule that until they turned 12 and they were on a baseball or football team, when they needed to get hold of me, they couldn't have the phone. So they went crazy. But of course, thank God my kids are very talented. They're very good in sports, and they got their phones early. But at the dinner table, I had them take all their phones and put it on the mantle. And then we had our dinner. And that was just a must. And that was
yeah.
way back when.
Yeah, that's what most people should do because there is no, communication. It's whatever, and that's what's funny when someone says they'll say, "Oh, have you heard from so and so?" First thing they do is check a Facebook status.
Absolutely.
It's like, okay, yeah, no, they were here this week, and when was the last time you physically spoke to these people? Oh,
That's right. That's right. It's incredible. It's incredible. But
it's a
it's a
whole new
lost art,
world.
but hopefully I can bring it back out.
Yes. Now, how'd your experience as a veteran of Desert Storm influence your approach to networking and communication?
Well, not so much Desert Storm, but my time in the service as an Air Force vet. Um, I was faced at an early age because I was very fortunate. I was able to this things called step promotions and things like that. I was a senior NCO, a senior sergeant, early, but I was faced with the fact that I had to deal with people who were older than I was, who were less in rank, and I had to tell them what to do. So I had to do that very strategically and very calmly, but I had to do it in such a way where I was friends with them. Okay, so I was able to tell them what to do, and of course, the people younger than I was, I told them what to do. But that started a whole appreciation of how to communicate with these people. And everybody is different, but there are some common situations where you can really figure that out. And it was interesting to say the best, to say the least. But when I turned into, I was a business owner, pizzeria, restaurants, things like that, and you had your whole staff, and you had the customers, so you had to really learn to talk with one another,
Yeah.
um, and everything was very helpful. But going through the mortgage and going through the law firms and
Right.
things like that, it really brought everything together.
Yeah, because you had a wide variety of different people you had to
Wide
communicate with.
variety.
Yeah, nice. So now tell us, what are some of the most common reasons people's networking efforts fall short, and how can they overcome the obstacles?
You said it before.
Mhm.
Put the phone down.
Yes.
Okay, it's very simple. Just put the phone down. And here's the number one mistake that people make in networking situations. They go to a table and they talk. Your job is not to talk. Your job is to listen. Listen to what they have to say. See how you can be a valuable part of the conversation. And if you can, then you put your 2 cents in, wait for the response, but you have to listen to what they say. You can't start to think about what your next thing you're going to say if you're not listening to the
Right.
person, because otherwise, he's just talking in here, wah, wah, wah,
Right,
wah, wah, wah.
right.
Okay, and how about this? So that's the main thing. And really, the biggest challenge when people go to a networking event, they expect they're going to sell their product or sell their service right away.
Yeah,
And that is 100% the wrong attitude.
right.
Your attitude should be, what can I do to help? What, for instance, I was at a networking event, and I was listening to this person. I was talking and talking, and I said, he goes, "Well, what do you think?" I said, "Well, something that sounds great. How can I be your best salesperson? What can you tell me that I can refer you to somebody else and you would get the business?"
Right,
Now, all of this is before I said what my business is,
right,
what I can do for him, anything else like that. My first thing was what can I do for him?
right. Hmm. I have it is a little tricky thing because even with like social media, like LinkedIn years ago was always that business networking event, you know, platform. But two things, it's a little odd. So it's a networking thing. I obviously don't know everybody in the world. So when I see somebody on there, I'm like, okay, we look like we have things in common. Let me connect with them. And then you get your hand slapped from LinkedIn because you don't know them.
Yeah,
How am I going to get to know them? Isn't that what this platform's for? But then on top of that, I get pitched every single day by probably 75% of the people who connect with me are trying to sell me something. And they always
yeah,
start with, oh, it looks like we share similar interests. I'd love to connect. And I'm like, okay. And then within seconds, I get that blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm like,
yeah, yeah. It's the same thing.
okay.
LinkedIn is this very same way, very same thing as going to a networking event. Okay. When you connect with somebody, the first thing you do is actually find out about what their business is
Right.
and how can you be a referral source for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
If
that's,
you do, if you do your job correctly, they'll ask you for your name, ask you for your business card, and ask you to hook up afterwards.
because that seems to be a thing that most people are missing. Because, like I said, LinkedIn, when I get pitched constantly, half them are pitching me what I do. It's like, did you even
Right,
research what it is I do? Because I do what you're trying to sell to me. But
right,
yeah,
right.
nobody listens.
Nobody listens. Nobody listens. You have to close your mouth and listen.
Yes. Now tell us, can you walk us through your 7-step path to effective networking, and how'd you develop this framework?
I developed it from years of trial and error. Things I did right, things I did wrong, things I should have done, things I shouldn't have done. You don't want to sit there and chew gum and look into outer space and go and shake the guy's hand.
Right.
You really want to look at the person in the eye. You want to shake their hand firmly. Now, I don't mean shake their hand like a dead fish. Like, oh, how you doing? Shake their hand firmly. You have to look them in the eye. You have to smile. Okay, smile, look them in the eye, shake their hand. Don't talk. Listen. Listen to what they have to say. Okay, and then it's follow-up. Now, I've done breakout sessions, keynote speeches, just on the follow-up.
Mhm.
Okay. I assume that you've already met the person, that you've made a connection with the person, but how do you follow up? And you follow up, of course, when you get back to the office or house or home or whatever, um, you email that person right away. Now, I'm leaving out 50 steps.
Mhm.
Okay, because now all of that is in my book and how you do it and everything else like that. But you either email them right away. Now, during this whole conversation, you take their business card, you write down the date, the type of event it is,
Right.
and something that you an example that I've used 100 times. I was speaking with somebody, speaking to them on a certain level, on a youth sports level. I was a baseball manager. I was an umpire. I really can connect. But their son played soccer, and he broke his leg when he was playing soccer. So that was what I put on the back of the business card. So when I got back and I wrote the email, I included that.
Right.
But here is the thing that nobody does. Nobody. Take out a note card, a thank you card, and write a handwritten thank you note for meeting them. And do the same thing. I hope your son is better. His leg. Listen, I hope to have a cup of coffee with you. Just call me. I sign it, put my business card, give it to him right away.
Right.
Okay. And then there's a few more emails and things like that to follow up. But there's one thing you have to remember. You're not building clients. You're building relationships, because a relationship will last a whole lot longer than any client would be.
It's funny that you mentioned that because that is true. I remember having conversations with people, whether I was on their podcast or we just spoke about something, and then I just get the surprise thank you card in the mail. And I got to tell you, they stood out to me more than I could still tell you who they were. I mean, because I remember it because I was like, oh my God, that was so sweet. Nobody does that. I'm like, that was so sweet. Didn't ask me for anything, was just thanking me for my time, thanking
That's
me to
it.
get to know me. They thought this was great. If I could ever be of any assistance to you, let me know, vice versa. I'm like, oh, yeah.
Well, when I was in the mortgage industry, I had 1,000 realtors
Right.
that I was after. But I wrote a thank you note to one realtor, and she was so taken back by my thank you note. She wrote me a thank you note for my thank you note. Okay. So that just it you're absolutely right. You stand out 100% above and beyond everybody else.
Right. Yeah, and it was like just even like the envelope it came out with this little sticker and stuff like that. Like somebody else was, I did a podcast with them about something, and they were talking about packaging, and I was like, it was just like whatever that sticker was, just kind of made my day. And I was like, it's something like that. It was a thank you note, but it was just they took the time to really. It meant something to them to send it. It wasn't just
Yeah,
slap an envelope and yes, yeah, things like that do
that's
go a long way.
that it stands out. It
Yeah,
stands out, and then they remember you.
yeah,
So when you do follow up, they remember you because you go to a networking event,
yeah.
they see 100 people,
Right.
but you have to do something that stands out.
For sure. So now tell us, what are some of your favorite strategies for breaking the ice and making meaningful connections with new contacts?
Well, the first thing you have to remember is don't talk business.
Yeah.
You're like, well, what am I there for? Of course, I want to talk business. No, you don't want to talk business. You want to talk about get on a different level. Get on youth sports, major league sports, music, art, anything like that. Okay, inject a little humor
Right.
if you are funny. If you're not funny, don't right, because nothing is, well, I'd say nothing is worth, but it's funny because if you see somebody trying to inject humor and they're really not a funny person, you can tell.
Yeah.
Okay, you can really tell. But it's really it's breaking down those barriers that will have that person open up, and nothing will have them open up more than talking about themselves.
Right.
You get them to talk about themselves, and all of a sudden, every barrier starts
Yeah.
coming down.
Good advice. Well, speaking of advice, what advice do you have for building genuine rapport with anyone you meet? And are there specific techniques or mindsets that work best?
Yeah, well, there are. I remember that there's a word, form, FORM, family, occupation, recreation, and really a message that anything is open. Okay, so you can always look if you go into an office and you're one on one now, not a networking event, and you have to scan the office and say, look, are there any pictures? Are there children? Are there grandchildren? Is there a plaque? Is there about their job? Are they outstanding in their job? Do they jet ski? Anything like that. And then all of a sudden you start the conversation with that. Okay. With that music. Oh, do you like that type of music? Because so do I.
Right.
Or that's interesting artwork. Now, I connect with everybody usually on youth sports because that was such a big part of my life.
Right.
Um, and if they like baseball or football or even basketball, or I'm a 5'7" guy from New York. I really don't play basketball, but I can talk about it.
Right.
Okay. So, it's really that's the easiest way. And again, once you get them to start talking about themselves,
Right.
whether it's their family or recreation, they'll just go on and on and on. They'll
Right.
say, oh my God, it's a half an hour already. We should have to really talk about business.
Right.
Okay. And if they do that, then you've made it.
That's actually so true because anywhere you go, like especially with the kids, be like, "Oh my god, my grandkid has that same dress." Well, now it's almost like rolling out the red carpet. Come on in, we're going to talk kids.
Absolutely. Come on in. Come on. The water's fine. Come
Yeah.
on. Yeah.
Now tell us, what are some common roadblocks people face when they're trying to gain traction in their networking efforts, and how can they address these issues?
Let's go back to the beginning of our conversation. They don't look people in the eye. Okay. I hate that when somebody's introduced to me or I'm talking to somebody and they're looking in the upper right hand side and I'm trying to look at them in the eye.
Yeah.
So you look at the person in the eye,
Right.
shake their hand like you mean it.
Right.
Okay. Like I said, not a dead fish, nothing like that, but just shake their hand. Okay. And again, people like to talk, especially about themselves, you know, let them talk.
Right.
Let them talk and talk and talk, and you'll know whether or not this person is right for you. Now you'll run into those salespeople that doesn't make a difference as long as you have a heartbeat and you have a dollar in your pocket. They're your salesperson.
Right.
Okay, I'm a little bit more particular. All right. So now I feel I'm fairly humorous. So I always inject a little humor and it usually winds up pretty well. But those are the things the types of roadblocks you have to watch out for.
Right. Yeah. So people need to pay attention and know that this is a process. It's not a get in there, get it done. It's not
Well,
swiping stuff through a
it's
register.
not a sprint.
Yeah.
It's not a sprint. Because you're building relationships,
Right.
not clients.
Yeah. And it's true. I mean, if you get valuable relationships, they'll last you decades to come. And it's so many
Absolutely.
people, I'll get an email from someone, they'll be like, you know, I hadn't spoken to these people in 10 years, but they knew, like, they remember me. And somebody else they came across in their path, they were like, there's someone I think you should talk to. So, because you have that relationship. If I was just someone sending them pitches all day long, I'm probably getting shoved in a folder that's never even looked at anymore. What's her name? I don't know. So is that the one who's always sending me this crap? Yeah.
Right, 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 right.
Yeah. So now tell us, how can effective networking directly impact profitability for individuals and corporations? And can you share some success stories?
Well, again, I'm going to direct you to my book because that is from start to finish
Right.
how it will increase your profitability if you do the networking properly.
Right.
But now I was speaking at not it was at a firm, not in a networking event. I was doing a workshop,
Right.
and I was telling them about everything, and there was about 75 people in the company, about 15 salespeople. And I said, look, if you follow every one of my steps,
Right.
I will guarantee you by next month, you'll increase your profit margin. And they're like, oh, yeah, sure. But meanwhile, about 10 of the 15 really paid attention
Right.
and really listened to what I was doing. And at least three of them got one more sale.
Wow.
And at least another three or four of them increased their sales by three or four.
Nice.
Okay. So the money that I charged to come in and speak to them, they made it back a hundredfold
Oh,
by them listening, excuse me, listening to what I had to say
right.
and networking properly.
Yeah. And I know like post COVID, everybody always says, oh, there's no network. There are, I mean, especially even online, there's several groups that are just networking groups. You join them. Like I think one is Lunch Club, I think it's called. You just can set, I want one a day, two a day, five a day, whatever. And you can either search for people you want to network with or it'll kind of pay. There's options. People just look for excuses sometimes.
Yeah, well, this next company that I'm going to, I believe in August. It's a metal roofing company. It's like, but just with the salespeople. And he saw the value in increasing his sales.
Right.
Even if he were to make one extra sale, that would pay for everything. But
Right.
with all of his salespeople, I think he'll increase his sales by two, three, four, and five.
Wow. You just have to put in the work.
Just have to put the work in.
Yeah. That tells how do you balance your professional passion for networking with your personal life, especially with your family in Georgia?
Well, okay. Having that work-life balance was always a priority for me. It wasn't like, oh my God, I'm overworked and I missed half of my kids' life.
Right.
Um, when I worked hard and smart. Um, but I always found time for my family.
Right.
Like I said before, I was a baseball manager and umpire. I did this for 16, 19 years,
Wow.
everything combined. So I had to find that equal time. Um, when I went home, there was always time for my wife. Now she works full time. Okay. So when we got home, it wasn't like, oh, wash my hands, that's it.
Yeah.
No, I sat there and I helped cook, clean. When I graduated high school, my grandmother
Mhm.
made sure that I could cook, clean, and sew.
Nice.
Okay. So, and I put that to use every day for my marriage.
Nice.
Okay. I've been married for 35 years and happy every single time.
Mhm.
So every Friday is date night.
Nice.
Okay. Just with my wife. Um, so it really, that balance, I've
Yeah.
always found that balance. I've always made sure about that balance.
Right. That's one thing that a lot of people, it's all work. You have to find the time, you have to, put in the effort and blah, blah, blah. And, I mean, anything can work. But if you just figure, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. There's more to it than that.
Right,
Nice.
right, exactly.
I guess tell us what trends do you see shape in the future of networking and how can professionals stay ahead of the curve in developing their networking skills?
It's really pretty simple. Be present. No cell phones, do anything, listen to the other person. You have to get back to prospecting clients in person,
Right.
okay? Because there's something to be said for that in person touch.
Right.
Um, I know with the advent of Zoom and
Mhm.
uh, Zoom calls and everything else,
Right.
it's really easy to get away from that. But let that be the exception to the norm.
Right.
Okay. Do that if you're dealing with somebody in California and I'm in Georgia, obviously I'm going to do a Zoom call.
Right.
Um, but, if they're local, make it a point, go out there, speak with them. They
Right.
really appreciate that one on one. Now,
Right.
I'm gonna now in New York, things were a little different. Okay, when I was in a mortgage, it's like, come on, what do you got? How much is it? How much is the rate? And get out of here because I've
Yeah.
got work to do. Okay. In the South, it's a little more laid back,
Yeah.
so you can take your time. And it took me a while to get used to that, but I did. And really, that's the way you should go.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, it is funny with the North and the South because from you see New York fast paced. And I remember like
Absolutely.
years ago, I went down south for a vacation and it just amazed me. I was like, wow, no one down here will ever have a heart attack. They just go with the flow, they mosey on down. And it took a while. You get into that flow. And then I got back to New York. I wasn't even 15 minutes like, quick, 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 gotta go chopper. It's like, okay, that was over with. So,
Yep.
yeah.
It was nice, but that's fine.
Yeah. No, but it is true where people have to listen more because it just seems everybody under the sun is just looking. Everybody wants that quick fix. They want to make money fast. They think that whatever they have to sell is everybody should just want it and that's it, without even hearing what the pain points are that someone else. How can you how can you help them? Like, did you even know how you can help if you can help them? And listening will answer a lot of that. Mhm.
Absolutely.
So, anything else you want to talk about that we didn't already touch on? What else you got going
Uh,
on?
it's just everything is different when you network in a networking event. It's different than that networking one on one,
Right.
and they're not so different where you have to forget about everything and two separate rules.
Right.
Um, but you can take pieces away from it. Now, I have to tell you, at one of the last networking events I went to, I was at a table with like 6 or 7 people, and a guy comes walking up. Hey, how you doing? I'm Joe Blow. I sell widgets. I'm not going to say what he really did.
Right.
And he handed out his business cards to everybody. He goes, look, let me have each one of your business cards. I'll be in touch with you. Don't worry about it. I'll see you later. Da, 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 da. Off you went. I had the card. Looked around. I said, are you kidding me? I took his card and threw it out. Okay. You should treat your business cards like they are money. Okay. Now, one rule of thumb that I have, I go to a 3 or 4 hour networking event. I don't hand out more than 10 business cards, but I have maybe 20 business cards that people ask for mine. Okay, so don't hand them out so easily. Treat them like money, and and if you do it, take your time.
Yeah.
Uh, you'll be one. It'll be wonderful
Right. That is pretty funny. But you do see that all the time, unfortunately.
all the time, all the time.
Yeah. And
But
yeah, one thing that's actually cool too is I've gone to some, I guess, sort of online networking events, but what they do is you'll have, it's not necessarily a networking event where they might be talking about something in particular, but then every now and then they'll take a 15-minute breakout and you can either pick who you want to team up with to have a one on one, or you could do it in a group where you're kind of privately networking with this particular person or group who, based on their questions they ask maybe during the talk, you seem to think you have something in common with them or whatnot. So even stuff like that, if you're kind of forced into that sort of thing, it's amazing. I mean, that's one thing, like even with a podcast, I just love hearing other people's stories, learning what they do. And I've,
yeah,
been 35 years in business. So I'm always like, who can I put them in touch with? Like, connecting people,
right.
because it's just, and I've been on podcasts where people will interview me, but then within the last 15 minutes, it became them pitching their whole story. It's like, okay, well, that's cool,
Yeah,
but was it about me or was it about you? So
right, right.
I just love learning, talking to people, learning what they do. And hey, if I can help, great. But if not, how can I help you? I mean, that's what it should be really about.
Every time I go to a company to do a workshop or I do a breakout session, I always network with the audience
Right,
afterwards.
right,
And every single time, every single talk that I give, I'm always able to connect two
right.
people.
Nice.
And that for me, that my job is done.
Right,
I just really feel that that's the way that it should be done.
right,
Everybody should be looking what they can do for everybody else,
right.
and eventually it'll come back to you.
Yeah, I mean, they'll remember, like, who connected me? That's right. That, And it's
That's
you're
right.
helpful
Absolutely.
in not only what you're doing, but you're helpful in other ways as well. So yeah, good
Right.
stuff. So I guess how
Absolutely.
yeah. So I guess how could people learn more about you or find out what you're up to and all that good stuff?
It's very simple. Go to my website, michaelaforman.com. On
Awesome.
there are all the podcasts about the articles that were written about me, um, the different talks, whether it's keynote, breakout session, workshop coaching. You can just select that. There's a contact form, and you can just click it away, and I will get back to you within a day. But Michael A. Forman, you can also get my book on from my website.
Awesome.
Click on that; it'll take you over to Amazon. They sell everything, um,
Good stuff.
and you can buy the book.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for being on the show. Again, that was Michael Forman. So thanks for listening to Successful Minds with Patty B. Never miss an episode by subscribing. So thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.